Radical Radio Collective.
Good afternoon, listeners. You're on 4ZZZ 102.1 FM. This is Eco Radio, Australia's longest-running peace and environment radio show. Recent unearthings have shown that we've been on air for 49 years in some form or another.
50th anniversary coming up next year.
Yeah. Crazy. So 1 year after 4ZZZ was made, they started talking specifically about environment and peace. Yeah, that's amazing. So, we're going to keep it going. We're taking over your middle of the day, middle of the week, end of the month-ish airwaves. My name's Dave. My pronouns are he, him.
My name is Zack, and my pronouns are he, they.
And I want to start off by acknowledging and paying my respects to the custodians on the country in which we broadcast. We're located in the city Mungingin on Turrbal Yoga Yugambeh land. I also want to acknowledge and pay my respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are listening in today. Our radio waves reach Cubby Cubby and Yinabara country in the north, Waka Waka country in the west. In the east, we pay our respects to the Quandamooka people, and down south, we reach the Commonwealth, Nagaragwal, Mununjali, Wanjerabara and Yugambeh countries. Thank you to No Idea for all the great ideas. And a big thank you to Zack. He's back.
Yay. I was on hiatus. Whoa! I feel like I'm in an episode of some sitcom right now because I didn't really deserve an applause there, but I got it nonetheless.
You absolutely deserve an applause. So we have a huge jam-packed show today to go with April Atonement. We're packing that jam. And we are going to be talking about the upcoming election with a few candidates that took me up on a interview offer. We're talking to Kamala Emanuel from Socialist Alliance and Cameron Leckie from Australia's Voice, both Senate candidates looking to join the Senate next month. Zack, you've also brought us an interview.
Yeah, we'll be having a chat with Charlie MGee from Formidable Vegetables. Charlie will be talking to us about the upcoming planting festival at Woodford from the 2nd to 4th of May.
All right, fantastic. And it is April Atonement, and a time that we should atone for our sins. If you're a subscriber or you want to be a subscriber, you can go to 4ZZZ.org.au/support and come in for the April Atonement subscriber run, which amplifies the voices of our community. We're going to be talking news today, but we also talk about different plants, different animals. Last week or the week before, I talked about gardening utensils. So there's a whole lot of things. And if you are a subscriber, your name comes up. Just like Stacey. Stacey has asked us a quick question. Stacey has asked, what does Eco Radio think of space exploration? In my opinion, Stacey, I think we should learn to live on one planet before we go trying to terraform or colonise others. And we haven't got sustainability down, so I don't want to be spreading the unsustainability other places.
In my opinion, Stacey, the eternity and the infinite void of space scares me as a concept, so I don't like thinking about that any more than I have to.
Okay, thanks, Stacey. You've given Zack some anxieties there.
It's okay, Stacey. We talked about it before we came on the show, so it was already there.
Wow, we just got a subscriber. Wow, fantastic. Big applause for the subscriber. If you want to become a subscriber and go in the running to win all sorts of different prizes, you can do that. For as little as $25 a pet subscription, you could win an outside-the-box framed pet portrait. And I think it would be really fun to get all sorts of different pets out there. If you've got a green tree frog in your backyard, if you've got a brush turkey, if you've got a noisy miner that just like always hangs around your grevillea, that would be a really cool pet portrait to put in as well.
I've got some really large skinks that live underneath my house.
Skinks, perfect. I'd love to see that. So you can go on the running to win that. You can go on the running to win alcohol-free beer, a year of beer from Heaps Normal. There's so many prizes. Go to our website, 4zzz.org.au, and check it all out. Just fantastic round for April Atonement. We're going to go to a song now by Dumb Things. This is Cherry Blossoms, and afterwards we'll be talking to Cameron Leckie. He is running in the Senate candidate with the Australia's Voice Party, and we're going to be talking to him. You're listening to 4ZZZ 102.1 FM.
Did you know that 4ZZZ is turning 50? Since December 75, we've been playing awesome music, hearing from communities and representing the issues that matter. Why not subscribe this April Atonement and ensure we can keep going for another 50 years? There are heaps of benefits, and with some cool events planned towards the end of the year, it's a damn fine time to be a subscriber. You can also win a prize, so head to 4zzz.org.au and subscribe today.
It is a damn fine time to subscribe, and Tim knows that because he just subscribed. Thank you very much, Tim. Big applause, big applause. You can go and subscribe and be a champion just like Tim if you go to 4zzz.org.au. And on the line right now, we have Cameron Leckie. He's running as a Senate candidate for Australia's Voice. And Cameron, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you today, Dave.
Oh, absolutely. So first off, I just want to ask you, what do you see as the biggest threat to our environment here in Australia?
Well, Dave, so I'm both a soil scientist and in a former career I spent 24 years as an Army officer. And, my take on both of those perspectives is our environment is in far greater risk to us than any military threat that we face. I guess maybe I'm a little bit biased because I'm a soil scientist, but, the state of our soil is one of those. We've lost half the organic matter in our soils. We have erosion issues, and we're really not doing enough at the national level to deal with that. And what we've got is massive expenditure on AUKUS. I think we might ask a question about that later. But the Wentworth group of concerned scientists, they released a report last year which for 70% of the cost of the AUKUS submarines, the initial cost, we could fix Australia's landscapes over the next 30 years. So that's where I think Australia, and that's what Australia's Voice is pushing for, actually fixing problems with our environment rather than spending it on the military. Yeah,
well, 30 years is a short period of time to fix the soil. Do you think that that's able to be done?
Well, it's not just soil; it's our entire landscape. And I mean, this is a blueprint they've put out, and may take longer or that, but it certainly would put us on a very good course to actually fixing our landscape and addressing many of the issues, environmental-related issues that we have in this country, such as drought, such as flood. It also helped to improve our food security, given the impact that that's already having on food production. So maybe in 30 years' time, if we implement this now, maybe we wouldn't be quite there, but we'd be in a lot better spot than what we currently are.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're elected to the Queensland Senate, that will be your number one priority?
Well, not. I mean, we've got a suite of policies. That'd be certainly one thing that we're working on, but there's a couple of things which I think will be our priorities. The first one is scrapping the AUKUS deal. So I'm sure you're familiar with the AUKUS submarine deal, which was $368 billion, has gone up to $375 billion, and we can bet that it's going to go up even more. Possibly tens, hundreds of billions of more for these submarines, which aren't there to defend Australia. They're really there to sit off the coast of China, but really, the submarines are a bit of a smokescreen. What AUKUS is really about is providing access to the United States military to use Australian military facilities to contain and potentially attack China. So that is obviously not in our interest. It's an unwinnable situation for Australia. So we need to stop this before it gets further head of steam.
Yeah, but in saying that, like, Britain and America are our two largest allies in size and probably in culture, I guess. Won't that upset some balance that we have with them as allies?
Well, we're not actually formally an ally with the United Kingdom. We are the United States, and we have a treaty with the United States called ANZUS. It doesn't actually. It doesn't have any requirement for the United States to support Australia. If you actually read the treaty, it says to consult if there's an issue. And we can see the unreliability of the United States throughout its history. If you go back to the Vietnam War, when it all became too hard, they got out. What happened in Afghanistan, after 20 years, they managed to replace the Taliban with the Taliban.
Yep.
And now that the Ukraine war sort of seemed to be coming towards some sort of end, and they didn't succeed in their objectives there, they're now looking to pull out of that. So I think it's not a wise decision to rely on the United States for our defence. We need to be able to defend ourselves, and I think we can. And we don't. By doing that doesn't mean the United States becomes an enemy. It just means we become an independent nation capable of making our own decisions, maintaining our sovereignty, as well as defending ourselves.
Won't the nuclear submarines be able to help us defend ourselves?
Not really. Well, first of all, it's highly unlikely that the nuclear submarines will ever be delivered. And both the United Kingdom and the United States, there's plenty of evidence, documentary evidence, reports and that coming out to say they don't have the industrial capacity to deliver these submarines. So if they can't deliver, just from a project business risk management perspective, you think you've entered into an extremely expensive contract, the most expensive contract that we've ever signed for defence procurement. We've entered into that, and we have no guarantees that we'll have submarines at the end of it.
Yeah.
So that's a bad business decision, and there are other options. And if we're actually looking at defending Australia as opposed to just being part of the United States as sort of military containment of China, we wouldn't be purchasing submarines of this type anyway.
Yeah, right. Okay. So the big question, I guess, with AUKUS is if we do get nuclear submarines, where will that nuclear waste go? You're a soil scientist. There are communities that have said we don't want nuclear waste near us. What is your plan for if the nuclear waste does have to get put in Australia, where that would go?
Well, our plan would be for it not to happen in the first instance.
Yeah.
If we take on nuclear waste, we have to be able to store that for thousands of years potentially. And if we look back in history where we were 2,000 years ago, we have no idea in 2,000 years' time whether we'll be, able to maintain and support, the requirements to keep nuclear waste safe. And so it's one of those things. Well, if you can't guarantee that over the long term, there's no point to sort of saying, yeah, we can do it, and for 50 or 100 years. We need to think about future generations and what sort of legacy we're leaving them. So the best course of action in this case is not to have the nuclear waste in Australia in the first instance.
Yeah, I guess this also applies to Coalition's nuclear power plant plan, which maybe has more, ability if they get elected. What happens then?
Well, I mean, this is where we need to weigh up, the compromises that we're going to make. So, I think Menango in Queensland's possibly one of the areas where they're looking at having a nuclear power station. And where are they going to get the water from? I think it's nuclear power plants use something like 2,000 litres of second of water for cooling. And if we have such an enormous demand for water, and Australia's a drought-prone country, so we have periodic droughts, and they can last a very long time. And so, what are we going to do? Are we going to keep the nuclear power plants operating, or are we going to take the irrigation water away from our farmers who are providing the food that provides us food security and sustenance? These are the sort of questions that aren't being asked, answered by the coalition when it comes to the plan for nuclear plants. But these are crucial. If we want to be able to feed ourselves, we need to make sure we have the water available to do that. And what are we going to do? We have a 10-year drought, which is not that long ago we've had substantial droughts, millennium drought, etc.
Yeah.
We're just going to stop farming in these regions. What's going to happen to those regional communities? So these are the things we need to be thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're elected as a senator, or if the other Australia's Voice candidates are elected, you will be anti-nuclear power plants?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, we've got three candidates running in the Senate. We've got a range of different interests, and I think the difference between our party and some of the others is we're going to highlight those issues that the major parties and some of the independent or minor parties don't want to talk about. And for one example, in Queensland, the Torres Strait Islands.
Mm-hmm.
So the Torres Strait Islands, we have a number of members in Australia's Voice from the Torres Strait Island. There's also some senior members of that community who are advising us. And they're struggling with real impacts of climate change now. So not, in 50 years' time, they're struggling now. That includes the salination of some of their groundwater and their ability to grow crops. They have rivers or, water flowing through their islands, which were, didn't occur in the past and impacting upon their sort of tribal areas.
Yep.
So there's virtually nothing being done to support this or to prevent this from happening, yet we're putting a lot of focus on the Pacific Islands, which we have no problem with. However, our focus on the support we provide the Pacific is very much on a security focus. We're not actually investing in their future development from an economic perspective. It's mostly focused on security, and so I mean that shows through that people can see through that. We're not genuine in our support. We're only supporting them because it helps us in our sort of fear-based approach to the world that we really haven't got over since the early 20th century.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Cameron, for joining us. I hope you enjoyed that chat.
I did. Thanks very much for the opportunity, Dave, and hopefully some of your listeners will vote one for Australia's Voice in the Senate this year.
Okay. That was Cameron Leckie from Australia's Voice. Let's go to a song now. This is US Forces by Midnight Oil. You're listening to 4ZZZ. This is Eco Radio.
Welcome to April Atonement. Did you subscribe this time last year? If so, you're just in time to resubscribe. You know what we're about and what April Atonement is all about. It's about the sweet, unique, local, and ethically sourced community radio made with love. So head to 4ZZZ.org.au to resubscribe and keep this little community radio station jamming out for another year.
Welcome back. You're on 4ZZZ 102.1 FM. This is Eco Radio. We just heard from Tape Off with their song Fort Sensible and Midnight Oil with their song US Forces. A little bit of a submarine defence bracket there. And on the line now we have Charlie MGee from Formidable Vegetable. Charlie, thank you so much for joining us.
No worries. How you going?
Good. So we're talking to you today about the upcoming planting at Woodford Folk Festival.
Yes, can't wait.
So Charlie, Zack here. Could you maybe start us off with what the planting is and how it came to be?
Well, we've been doing it for over the years for the past decade, and I think it's been going even longer than that because, as people might know, Woodford Folk Festival is this incredible, massive throng of crew from Christmas to New Year, or Boxing Day to New Year's every year for their main festival. But then every couple of years, at least, up until COVID, they were doing a biannual planting festival, which basically is like a smaller version of Woodford, where people get together and plant trees during the day and then have a party at night and, workshops and bands and all kinds of fun stuff. So it's like a mini Woodford in winter, and there's, last time we were there was fires and mulled wine and chai and just sort of cozy winter vibes. But yeah, we love it because it's like a participati, You're not there just to be a spectator, you're there to join in and collaborate and get together and actually do something positive, which is awesome.
Yeah, I think I was reading on the planting festival as well that kind of like planting these trees is to ensure that the Woodford folk grounds maintain the beautiful lushness over it through the next several generations of people. So it's really cool to be able to, again, contribute to in that way, not just be a spectator.
Yeah, and Woodford's pretty incredible. They've got a 500-year plan for their bit of land, and it's, it went from being a cow paddock to being this lush rainforest because of all the volunteers and people, coming to the planting and things like that, putting in trees over the last few decades, I think like 20 or 30 years now. And so, it's gone from being literally just a paddock to being this incredible revegetated wonderland because of the love and effort that people have put in. And it's beautiful to be a part of that. You go there and you plant a tree or some bamboo or, some plants, and then you come back for the festival the next year and you go, oh, I planted that and look how much it's grown. And, we did a massive bamboo patch the other year. When my dad was over, actually, me and my dad planted some bamboo, and then I went back in summer and saw that it's just towering over the waste system there. So the dunnies actually get pumped into this biological, septic system that then gets processed and waters the bamboo. So the bamboo's growing with the waste from the festival, and it's just this beautiful closed loop, because then it gets harvested to make the decor and, the stage sort of structures and things like that. So it's this great little kind of closed system that's just being perpetuated by people, who love the festival.
Oh, that's such a great idea. I was thinking, bamboo isn't a great plant to put into a rainforest, but because you're harvesting to make structures and, the festival processions and things, that's such a good idea. I didn't realise that.
Yeah, and look, it's not running bamboo. I think that's the common conception, is that bamboo is terrible because it takes off and goes into creeks and things. But this is clumping bamboo, so it stays in one place. It's a great building material, and if we're thinking about sustainability, we need to think beyond just, revegetating back to what was, but we've got to kind of think of, everything, like from the building materials that we use to the food that we eat. And it's all sort of a balance, really. Getting that ecological balance isn't simple, and trying to make it fit into modern life is even trickier. But I think they're doing a great job, and it's a beautiful example of just how festivals can kind of live the change we want to see. It's not just about going and getting messed up and dancing to your favourite band and then being hungover for a week. It's about creating change in the world. That's what I love.
I suppose to connect it from kind of like that sustainability and that ecological balance, and then music, how do you go about incorporating those themes into your art?
Well, I mean, we started out as a band that basically did musical interpretations of permaculture principles, because I was doing a permaculture course about 10 years ago, and I was like, wow, this is awesome, the world needs to know about it. And my friend convinced me to write some songs on a ukulele, which I thought at the time was the nerdiest idea anyone had ever had, but it seemed to work. But over the years we've sort of tilted more in the direction of how do we change the systems that are keeping us locked into these unsustainable practices. And more I'm thinking about the people care side of things. Earth care is one of the ethics of permaculture, and that's all well and good, take care of the soil, plant trees, just take care of the water. But if we don't have good social structures and policies and, dare I say, political leaders who are going to, write rules around how to do this stuff, then it's going to be really hard to actually implement it on the ground. So I've started getting a little bit more interested in politics, and especially with this upcoming election, it's really interesting seeing the groundswell of communities coming together to be like, oh, actually, what do we want? This isn't working necessarily. Like, the climate crisis is still going. We're still losing bush and biodiversity at a rate of knots. Like, let's get some people in who are actually going to do something about it. So I've been really interested in the people power and kind of singing about that, singing about the things we can do as a collective to bring about the change, on the ground with the earth care stuff. So, we're actually coming over. We're doing a gig the night before the planting up in Draper, which is in Peter Dutton's electorate. And we're just going to try and gee up everyone the day before the election on the 2nd of May to just really think about voting for someone who's going to take meaningful action on climate and biodiversity and ecology and communities too. Because, I mean, everyone, I don't want to harp on about this too much because everyone's sick of it, but I think everyone just about in the whole country is sick of the whole two-party argy-bargy. And the fact is, there are alternatives. There are people stepping up, and there are millennials coming through who actually get climate change, and they're just doing their own thing as independents or, in the minor parties. And we can actually just vote them in. It's as easy as that. So, we're going to go up and do a little gig at Loop Growers on the 2nd and, put one up, everyone, to to do something about it the next day.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us today, Charlie. And you're going to be playing at the Planting Festival again. That's at Woodford from the 2nd till 4th.
We're playing at Woodford on the 3rd.
On the 3rd.
Yeah, Luke Growers on the 2nd and Woodford on the 3rd. So if you're kicking around up in the northern parts of Brizzy or Sunny Coast, come on down.
Yeah, there's also going to be plenty of other artists up there. Jem Casadale is going to be playing, Tim Friedman, Charlie Needs Braces. But I'd like to go out on one of my favourite songs of yours. This is Trees Eat Us All. It's just an absolutely gorgeous song. Thanks so much, Charlie, for everything you do.
No worries. Cheers.
Hey, 4ZZZ listener. April Atonement is here again, marking another year of supporting the station we love. If you've been jamming with us for a while but haven't subscribed yet, why not take the plunge today? You'll go into the draw to win a prize and get a hefty, flavourful spoonful of warm inner glow. Head over to 4zzz.org.au to subscribe today.
I'm going to sleep.
Not me, I'm staying up because we've got 20 more minutes left of the show. That was Electric Prawns 2 with Bop It, and before that we played Formidable Vegetable with Trees Eat Us All. On the line, you're listening to 4ZZZ, this is Eco Radio. On the line we have Women's Health Doctor Kamala Emanuel from the Socialist Alliance, running as a Senate candidate here in Queensland. Kamala, thanks for joining us.
Hi, g'day. Lovely to talk to you, Dave.
Yeah, fantastic. So let's start off. This is an environment show. What do you see as the biggest threat to our environment here in Australia? Or the world, actually?
Yeah, I actually think the biggest threat is capitalism. It's the system of corporate greed that we're all stuck in, that drives, every other environmental crisis you can think of, pretty much. So whether you're talking about the climate crisis, the state of the soils, the state of air pollution, the nitrogen flows, the phosphorus flows, more or less, you name it. And if you dig, usually you don't have to dig very far, you'll find someone making $1, making billions usually, from some form of pollution, some form of basically extracting value out of the earth, and not having to pay for it, not having to restore it after they've finished what they're doing. And those of us who aren't making the big decisions, we're just embedded in this thing. As a consumer, you can make a small number of choices, but it's all within the constraints of what are they producing and how. And I think if we don't change the political and economic framework everything's going on in, we're looking at something really desperate.
Yeah. So that's opposing a capitalist, greed-centric view of the world. If you're elected as a senator, how will you fix that problem?
The thing is that throughout history, it's the ordinary people who, with our political movements, have shifted things. And so what I would do, and what any of us from the Socialist Alliance would do, if we had the resources and platform that Parliament gives, is use that to build the grassroots campaigns and movements that drive change. I actually think that ultimately we need to create a new kind of system of grassroots democracy, where the decisions aren't being made by the corporations and by governments that basically rule for the corporations, but that in our communities, our neighbourhoods, workplaces, we're finding new ways of creating democracy where we make the decisions about the things that affect us. So what would I do in Parliament? Use the kind of, if you like, the megaphone that Parliament creates to amplify the demands of the grassroots movements. Use the resources that Parliament offers to publicise, how people can get involved in the grassroots campaigns. Push for legislation, vote for legislation, but that's, in my opinion, and the orientation that the Socialist Alliance has as a whole, it's not primarily the politicians voting in Parliament doing it for us, if you like. That's not primarily what drives change. I mean, we would certainly, we'd be voting for stronger, real meaningful action on climate change for one thing. 100% renewables within the next 5 years is the kind of ambitious goal we need if we are actually seriously going to turn the world's direction around as far as the climate catastrophe that we're already entered.
Yeah, that's very ambitious.
It is, and but the thing is, like, if you, I don't know, I mean, I was involved in, I've been involved in climate action for a long time, and I remember in 2010 when Beyond Zero Emissions put out their very ambitious set of plans for how Australia could get to 100% renewable energy within a decade, and that was 2010. So if we'd used that decade instead of wasting it, we would have been closer to staying within our carbon budget. We've used up our carbon budget. The world has. I mean, it's really clear. We've kind of reached the point where we have lost species, we have lost ecosystems, we've lost millions of people because of greenhouse gas fuels climate catastrophes. So it's too late for some people, and it's too late for some ecosystems, it's too late for some species, but it's not too late to work really, really hard to turn around where we are. And I mean, without ambitious targets, without saying what the problem is, we're just going to keep putting it off to the never, like that.
Yeah.
Like the corporations and the governments that rule for them have been doing. Since the Rio talks back in the late 80s, early 90s, whatever it was. They've been making these proclamations about how serious it is and how much they're going to take it seriously, and almost no one's actually followed through on kind of the big things that needed to change.
Yeah, well, in saying all that, seeing how we blew through these agreements and targets, do you still have hope that we can phase out?
My only hope is in people power. That is our only possible hope, because there is, I mean, the governments of the world have absolutely demonstrated that there's no number of people who are going to die that matters to them more than their profits. And I mean, I think there are so many ways we can see that, whether it's, the fires and floods and famines and disasters that the climate crisis is fueling, that they haven't cared to stop extracting fossil fuels. So that's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is look at Gaza. I mean, there's no number of dead Palestinians that they seem to be bothered by if it means that they can keep their, support for Israel, their little bit of Europe in the Middle East, and their access to oil. So to me, there are so many ways it's crystal clear that the people who run society actually don't care about, the regular everyday human beings. They care more about profits than they do about anything else. And you can see it in the housing crisis. There are all sorts of ways that you can see it. So that's why my only hope is that we organise ourselves. We find one another, if you like, because back in a decade ago, the Occupy movement popularised this idea that we're the 99%, and most of us want a world where we've got, neighbours and friends and community. Most of us don't want to live in a world of escalating poverty and climate crisis and wars. So if we organise ourselves, then maybe we can be more powerful than the corporations and their military might. Because when we stop, when we sit down, when we strike, when we walk off, when we occupy things, when we occupy space, we've got immense power. They've got a lot of violence on their side. They've got a lot of money on their side. They've got a lot of power in all the kind of awful ways that power is exercised. But we've got the power to create community with each other, and we've got the power to stop their system from working. So we I have hope. I think it's a mistake for us to kind of sugarcoat how dangerous a moment this is in world history. But I think, but I don't think it's just pie in the sky to have hope. I actually think it's a genuine option. You know, there's plenty to despair about, so if you want to despair, you can.
Yes,
But
yes.
there is real reason that we can, you know, whether it's in seeing people over decades, people have been good, regular, everyday people coming from all sorts of walks of life have been trying to do something about the climate crisis. And okay, we haven't turned everything around. Some people have done some amazing, beautiful initiatives. You know, like your previous guest, that kind of conversation about planting, revegetating forests with a 500-year plan. You know, people are doing beautiful initiatives. It's just when the framework is destroying it all, we need to kind of bring all of those initiatives together, or kind of link up the different initiatives and link up a new way of making decisions that that centres the community instead of the corporations.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Kamala Emanuel, for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. That was Dr. Kamala Emanuel, Senate candidate for the Socialist Alliance. Let's go to a song now. This is Charlie Needs Braces with Wampoo. You're listening for Triple Z. This is Eco Radio.
The weekly dose of science on 4ZZZ is now available as a podcast.
I learned that you can hear the difference between different water temperatures when they're poured. I'm going to pour one after the other into a different glass, and you have to tell me which one is which temperature. I've got a hot and a cold. Right, here's the first one. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm saying cold.
It sounds cool, yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Here's the second one. Well played.
Shut up. Search No Idea 4ZZZ on your favourite podcasting app. That's spelled KNOW, like no idea. It's a visual pun on an audio platform. I don't know why we did it.
Welcome back. You're on 4ZZZ. This is Eco Radio. We just heard from Charlie Needs Braces with their song Wampoo, about the Wampoo pigeon. And next week we'll be doing more election coverage. As I've also asked a heap of parties for interviews. So, Liberal, Labor, Greens, Lambie, Climate 200, Fusion. We'll try and get as many in as we can in the short time that we have on the show to talk to them about the environment. But there are things that you can do about the environment right now. You know what that is?
I don't know, Dave. Could you maybe give us an indication with a certain little jingle?
Okay, I'll try. It's a Bushcare Roundup. They've been pulling out weeds and then they put in trees. It's the Bushcare Roundup. It is the Bushcare Roundup, your weekly roundup of all things environmental and peace that you can volunteer at. Starting on Thursday, 24th, that's tomorrow, 7:30 a.m. Lota Cliffs Bushcare Working Bee. That's happening at corner Grace Street and Armytage Street in Lota. On Saturday at 8:30 a.m, you can go to the Bushcare Working Bee at Gertrude Petty Place Bushcare Habitat. That's 26 Mount Gravatt Outlook Drive. At 2 o'clock, you can go to the Bushcare Working Bee at DCP Greenslopes. That's at Roseglen Street in Greenslopes. And at 2:30, you can go to the Bushcare Working Bee at Cribb Park. That's 29 Pelican Street North, Ipswich.
On Sunday the 27th at 7 a.m, there is the Birds Queensland outing at Toronto Road in Chandler. From 7:30 a.m, there is a blister pack sorting for recycling. That one is at Wells Hill Bowls Club in Tarragindi. From 2 to 4 p.m, there is a Bushcare Working Bee at Woogoroo Creek, and that one is at 155 Eugene Street, Bellbird Park. And then at 3 p.m, there's Growing Forward Commons Working Bee, and that one is at 381 Gladstone Road at Dutton Park.
Fantastic. So, yeah, that's all of your Eco Radio for today. Thank you, Zack, for coming back in.
You're welcome.
And we're going to go out to Sonic Aliens, who are going to be doing a wrap-up of their latest very successful, very influential, very cool gig that happened on the weekend.